Welcome to Seen and Heard. I'm your host, Sharon, where everyone should be seen and heard. And here's my guest, Miss Kenniss Henry. Hello.
Hi, how's everyone? Greetings.
We are in gear for getting ready for midterms. We got 30 days left, right, for midterms?
Yeah, that's correct.
30 days left. And we're still getting the runaround here with our just our study. I'm going to play this video of Ed Gordon, and he's asking President Biden about reparations. I'm going to pull this up real quick. It's a short clip, but this goes to our conversation about reparations and midterms. So here he is.
Mr. Biden, we're at 16.9, almost 17% Black unemployment. Latino unemployment is at 17.6. Last statistics of the Labor Department. Let's do a hypothetical and say that you are elected, you get people of color's unemployment down to single digits. Most people are working, they're happy. Bob Johnson recently suggested that the African American community should see $14 trillion in reparations to try to eliminate the wealth gap, because if you are employed as a person of color, you are still so far behind in being wealthy in this country. The wealth of a white family is 7 times that of a Black family.
That's exactly right.
I know you've said before that you want to see studies, that you weren't necessarily ready to say you were for reparations, but you'd be willing to at least look at studies. There are a lot of people who suggested that these studies have been going on for a mighty long time, and why not say now whether you would be for reparations or not?
I know it has to be done now, and you know it too. Let's not wait. Let's go do the study and decide whether there should be direct cash payment. But in the meantime, you know it has to be done. We know now. For example, if in fact the homes of African Americans that are the same housing that white Americans have were valued at the same rate, there'd be $154 billion more equity in Black homes. That's how most white people and everyone else builds equity, builds cash, builds access to pass things on. We have to change that. We have to change the way in which we deal with access to housing. We have to change the way in which we allow people to be able to get in and purchase housing in the first instance. We have to. And these are things we can do. And we can do it. And by the way, right now, we can change the education system overnight. I've been proposing for a long time now. We should have Title I schools that have very low tax bases in their communities. We should go from 15 billion a year to 45, which we can do overnight. increase the salaries of teachers to $60,000 a year. They're 23% paid less than everybody else graduating from school. Get them in a position where every single child in that community is able to, and they're not just African Americans, is able to go to school, not go to daycare, school. 3, 4, and 5-year-olds in school. Every study the last 8 years of all the great universities shows that will increase to over 55% their ability to go all the way through all 12 years. We should be finding
And we should know we
access.
can find that. We should know we can find that on Biden.com, but I'm not sure what your answer is to the reparations question.
And if in fact there are ways in which to get direct payments for reparations, I want to see it. But why are we waiting around for the study? We can deal
Well,
with
they're
it.
not mutually exclusive. You don't have to wait
No,
around
they're
for the
not
study.
exclusive.
That's my point.
No, but they look, they're not mutually exclusive. But I can't believe that whatever it is, the African American community would not support what I'm talking about. In addition to
I don't think we have to. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this so we can move on because we can talk all day as well. But let me ask you this then. If in fact a calculation comes to you that you are satisfied with, would you then say, I'm for reparations?
The answer is depending on what it was, it will include Native Americans as well.
All right, let me see if I can get Abba to get us a quick phone call in before we move on to our Mr. Biden.
Well,
We're at 16.
so that was Biden during the campaign trail. That was during the campaign before he got voted in 2020. So I only remember a couple of other times that I heard him mention it on the campaign trail that he made it a promise, like a campaign promise, that he was going to, as soon as he got in the White House, what we've been trying to get him to do was like look at that study, at least do the study. So it's getting down to crunch time again. And like you were saying, I went and looked up Warnock. So he's not addressing it either, because there been people that have been trying to question him about reparation. And he's been ducking and dodging that question as well. We need to hold their feet to the fire though, and keep asking them. They can't avoid it.
Well, you are absolutely correct. They cannot avoid it. Biden knows that reparations is more than a paycheck. Mm-hmm. So back then he was ducking and dodging and talking about if you can come to me with a way that we can do direct payments. But his examples are about changing the school system. Direct payments do nothing for changing the quality of education. That's a good public policy process. And since the beginning of the time, every elected official has run on a platform of, when I get in office, I'm going to change the educational system. And here we are, post-COVID, and our babies are 2 to 3 grades behind because there was no structure to the education that our children received while they were on COVID lockdown. That's one thing. With COVID, it became blatantly clear that there is a major disparity between Blacks and Euro-Americans when it comes to healthcare. A direct payment check is not going to solve that problem. He is absolutely correct when he says that in this country, home ownership is the platform for building wealth. However, most people who would want to own a home can't come up with the down payment.
Mm.
So instead of saying, you know, I'm going to give you a check, direct payment, without actually putting some numbers behind that direct payment, the check could be something like what has happened with student loan forgiveness. Everyone was dancing in the streets because they thought they were going to really get some student loan forgiveness, only to find out that there are categories of students whose loans will not be forgiven, and they'll not qualify for that $10,000 to $20,000, whichever the case may be. Um, so we have to be really careful when we hear the president talking about direct payments, when direct payments cannot solve 400 plus years of injuries and harms that this country has purposely assured that we as people of African descent have had to deal with. And even if you gave people a check, there's no guarantee that they're going to take that check and then go find 100 other people and say, let's put our monies together and build this really amazing school system. Because we've been taught that we pay our taxes and we should have the benefit of a quality education, even though that doesn't happen.
Right.
And to be honest, right now, the legislation that's in Congress, all it's calling for is stand up a commission and study the 400 plus years of pernicious history of this country and current day vestiges. And if you feel, commission members, that reparations are in order, then craft remedies of redress to fix the problems, to set about repairing the damage. But
And it's not going to just include financial. It's got
right.
to include legislation.
Well, the remedies have to include the commission would come up with the remedies. The remedies then have to go back to Congress, and someone has to do what you're talking about, introduce legislation for those remedies to become law so that they can then begin to benefit people of African descent. However, when Biden is on the hot seat, he quickly inserts, well, any reparations to Black people have to include Native Americans. Now, I take nothing from Native Americans because indeed they got screwed.
Mm-hmm.
And they got screwed, and they got screwed, and they got screwed.
Right.
Why is it that there has to be this collective between reparations for the Native Americans and reparations for people of African descent in one fell swoop? So if you decide that you're going to give just some number, so let's say you decide you're going to appropriate $100 billion, just as a number, and that's it, no more, no less, and you go off and you do what you do. You either get a good school system, you get better health care, whatever the case may be. So then what he has done is he crafted an amazing divide and conquer.
Mm-hmm.
Because now the Native Americans are going to be like, well, we deserve 50% of $100 billion. And we're going to be like, no, you don't. Because we have the same injuries that you have. And yes, you were here before we were, but we've been here for almost 500 years, and you were here when we got here. So technically, 50% probably isn't even enough to repair the harms of Native Americans. So what do? We then have to come up with a formula for whatever this amount of money is. And Biden may not even be president by the time we resolve those issues. So he sits on the sideline, breaks his arm, patting himself on the back, declaring that he gave those people, air quotes, those people, reparations. However, all he did was create a environment where we would be potentially at each other, arguing and fighting over whatever the reparations pool of money is. Biden has the ability, he is the commander in chief, air quotes again. He is the commander in chief. He has the ability to not do one but two. So do the right thing. Do an executive order to do what's right by the Native Americans, and do what needs to be done to do what's right by people of African descent, and stop trying to run game and do the rope-a-dope bait and switch and say, well, yeah, but only if you include the Native Americans. And to be honest, I take nothing from the Native Americans. I know that history, know it well. Born and raised in the first state where all of this craziness got started, in Virginia. But if that's the case, then the burden of proof is on whom? Is burden of proof on Native Americans to come over and talk to people of African descent? Or is burden of proof on people of African descent to cross the line and go and talk to Native Americans and say, well, you can't get reparations unless you come over here with us. We can't get reparations unless we go over here with you. And Biden is sitting on the sidelines saying it's never going to happen. I don't even have to worry about it. I did my part. I said, yeah, you can have reparations, but only if it includes the Native Americans. That's never going to happen in a million years. So again, what we really should do is, if that's how he feels, and no one has questioned him, not that I'm aware of, since he's been president. No one has questioned him since he's been president, to ask him if he still feels that way, that there can be no reparations unless it is a joint reparatory justice movement between Native Americans and people of African descent. But if he still feels that way, then he has the pen. He's in the West Wing. Issued 2 executive orders, one for people of African descent and one for for Native Americans, so that we can go off and do as others have done, study the history of this country and how they have screwed people of African descent repeatedly over and over and over, and how they have screwed Native Americans repeatedly over and over. And if there was a crime of rape for screwing a country's citizens, this country would be in prison. Actually, they'd probably be placed in front of the firing squad. So,
well, there's but my thing too is that, and according to this chart, they have had some sort of redress. I don't know how their tribes worked it out or anything like that, but on this chart, we're the only ones that have had zero redress. Like, they've attempted it with Native Americans and the Japanese and the Jewish, and with the Holocaust here. We have, from 1865 to now, zero. Like everybody else on the list has been, accommodated, but in some way or form. But also where he's talking about adding the Native Americans and the Black Americans together, he didn't do that with the Asians and the Jewish people. They didn't do that with them. Put them together to have them, in one pool.
Why did the Jewish people get reparations again?
For the Holocaust that happened in Germany during World War II. And they're still getting reparations.
Yes, but why is the United States giving them reparations?
I mean, that's a big question. But listen to this guy here in what he says. He's talking about that
calculated
too.
And it was intentional, should receive their just due. However, we just so happen to be the number one group of people who do not receive our just due. And at that point now it's very disrespectful. The Asians receive theirs. The Jewish state of Israel receives $8 to $10 billion off the top every year on the year since the mid-1940s, and their Holocaust didn't even happen here. Are you telling me the Chinese received theirs? Not a problem. The Italians, because you hung 11 of them off the coast, they received some too. All the rest of these people get their bag. But when it comes to us, those who built the nation, quite literally, where there are other people who added certain pieces, sure, America brought in people and forced them to do certain things. Internment camps for the Japanese, Chinese, different people, all that exists. You have all of this happening in the Black community as well. And you don't give a damn about Black folk. Why? Because they still use us as a commodity today. They still need us today in the prison today. They have insurance policies, not only on rappers, but on prisoners today. It's all happening at this moment. So I can't acknowledge you because I'm still using you. I'm still benefiting from you. So I can't, it's a conflict of interest financially. So maybe down the line is their intention. We may give you something back. And they're going to say this. We can't afford it because they're so far. I calculated that they owe us between 50 to 52 trillion dollars, and that's just University of Ottawa over in Canada. One of the professors just calculated $8 an hour, for all the hours of free labor. Boom, boom, boom. Calculated that for roughly, I think, over 100 years, and they came up with that figure for all of the over 40 million of us, etc. And the numbers, please fact check those numbers. But that's the idea, and they said that's roughly the amount that we are owed. And so we can't afford it. Well, I'm sorry to tell you this, but didn't you just send Kiev, Ukraine over $1 billion? Yeah, didn't you send more money after that? Didn't you send money to Afghanistan for something like that? You're sending money everywhere, but you're saying you can't afford it. No, print some more. It was calculated and it was intentional. Should receive.
I mean, he's not wrong.
Nope. What's his name?
That was, let me look up his name. His name is, he was on TikTok. I found him on TikTok. Let me get his name. What's the account?
It was calculated and it was intentional. Should receive.
The account is 36.9 on TikTok. I'm gonna send you the link.
No worries.
It didn't have his name, but yeah. So he basically laid it out, like, And I've actually listened to people try to explain, because I've heard people ask, why does America pay the Jewish people reparations like they still pay them reparations? And nobody has really given an answer. Like nobody knows why they're giving them reparations. Let me see. Here's a report from the Harvard Public Health. Let me pull this up here. Mary Bassett for the Harvard Public Health. Reparations will save Black lives. So Mary Bassett from New York State Health Commissioner examines the close ties between wealth and health in America. She said it's time for the U.S. government to pay its debt to Americans. In the history of United States, Black Americans as the current Health Commissioner of New York State and both Health Commissioner of New York City, I often find myself reflecting on how little progress has been made on health equity during my lifetime. If mortality rates of Black Americans were equal to white Americans over the course of the 20th century, there would be 8.8 million more Black Americans alive today. This always astounds me. The COVID-19 pandemic has shown us once again how wealth and whiteness protect health. Virus to which no humans were immune has taken a stunningly unequal toll. Black and Latino adults have died at much higher rates than white adults, up to 9 times from COVID. The Black neighborhood of Brownsville, where I lived when I first moved to New York City, was one of the hardest hit in the early days of the pandemic, and its mortality rate is still more than twice that of the rest of New York City. There is no biological reason Black Americans should have poor health and lower life expectancy, nor can culture or individual choice account for the disparity of this magnitude across all health outcomes. What can? Long-standing racist government policies, from housing to healthcare, employment to a flawed legal system that has systematically deprived Black Americans of equal rights, opportunities, wealth, and resources. Black Americans as a group have lower incomes and much lower household wealth than white Americans and live in neighborhoods that have experienced significant disinvestment, gentrification, conditions that invariably lead to poor health. 840,000 average wealth gap between white and Black American households. In 2021, CDC declared racism a public health threat and a fundamental cause of health disparities and disease among communities of color. It's time to consider whether reparations are a necessary investment in creating equitable health outcomes for Black Americans. Reparations as an idea and policy measure is slowly gaining currency, kept alive over decades by committed activists. So Tanisha Coates and the now famous essay he published in The Atlantic in 2014 under international law, reparations are intended to provide remedy for systemic human rights violations. Here in the U.S., we don't often think of our government as systemically violating the rights of its people, but history tells us otherwise. Yep. And then, yeah, that's a good article here. It's a little bit long, but that's Mary here. She's a health commissioner. So that's her.
Yes, it is indeed a good article.
Mm-hmm. Have you read this one yet?
I have.
You have? Okay. And our friend is still MIA.
Who's that?
Miss Harris.
Madam Vice President?
Yep. She's been MIA because I think I've actually only heard her talk about it once during the campaign 2020.
Maybe prior to the campaign, maybe reparations was not something that was on her radar. And if that's the case, then maybe it got on her radar because it became a campaign issue. And you can't be biracial, mixed, and run for office unless you are Senator Warnock, and not say to the people you need to vote for you that you don't support reparations. I don't think that question came up to Senator Warnock when he was running last year in January. So he was able to avoid having to answer that question. And I don't know that it has come up a lot this year with his re-election efforts. So he again may well be able to avoid having to respond to any issues around reparations. And again, we are very loyal people, and we support our pastors because they're the pastor, and what a pastor say rules. So he has been able to avoid being put on the hot seat by anyone about reparations, but neither he nor his opponent support reparations. So for the people in the great state of Georgia, neither candidate, whichever one gets in office, is going to be a advocate for reparations.
This is Martin Luther King's daughter. This is Bernice. Black Lives Matter is a rally to the work of ensuring that Black lives become a part of the all. Multifaceted and layered racism make it clear that Black lives are not indiscriminately among the all. Let's talk about reparations, Bernice King.
Well, she's in Georgia and he's in Georgia.
I wonder if because she's like really, really active out there from what I see from what she posts. And I wonder if he's avoided her. Now that I think about it, I didn't know she was still in Georgia. I wonder if he's
Unless she
avoided her.
moved. She was in Georgia. Maybe she moved. I don't know. I'll take that back. Somebody can fact check that.
Right.
And you never hear about their youngest son, Dr. Martin Luther King's youngest son.
Oh, briefly we did when Knucklehead was in office. I think he went to he and some other pastors, some black pastors or something. They went to meet with him or something. But this was like in the beginning of his reign of terror. And I think he went obviously because they were trying to show maybe unity for like black churches and black support, but that shortly fell apart like after that meeting. So I didn't really see him. Now his niece, I think Martin Luther King's niece has a niece that was a supporter, and she would be at a lot of his rallies and stuff like that. But
yeah, it's either his niece or his sister. One of them is a major, a big time Republican.
I believe it's a niece. It was a niece. Yeah, because she was. I was like, Lord have mercy. Let's see.
Yep. So, for the most part.
Well, you finished.
No, go ahead.
I was actually saying that there's the meeting. I think we have it like twice a month. The Reparation Coalition. For Zoom. I didn't see you in the last one, but they send me an email, so they're going to do it all the way up until January of next year. So, like twice a month, we meet on Zoom, the group Zoom. You know what group I'm talking about? It's let me see here. It's the Reparations group, the ones that went to Geneva. U.S. Okay, here it is. U.S. African American Building a Coalition.
I have no idea
So
what you're talking about.
okay, I signed up because I was trying to join all the ones I could, just to be a part of them. So the next one that they have, I think the next one is coming up this month, like next week or week after next. So I'll send you a link when it comes. But the last meeting we had, the this what was that Congress lady? She was in the meeting. We were because you and I were talking about her. That she was supposed to be working with the getting the bill to Biden. The Congresswoman Miss Lee,
Sheila Jackson Lee?
Miss Sheila Jackson Lee. Yeah, she was in the meeting. And I thought about you. I was looking all over the room. I was like, "Where's Miss Kenniss?"
I have no idea what you're talking about. None.
Well, the next meeting we have, I'm gonna send you the link. I'm gonna send you the link on your phone, and I'm gonna send it email on the next day that it comes up because I had to look at the schedule. I saw it in my saved in the mailbox, but I had to look at the schedule. But I always get a email when it comes up. So the next email I get about it, the reminder, I'm gonna send you a link. I'm gonna forward it to you. Okay, well,
So
that's
what
that.
was Sheila talking about? I mean,
She was saying the same thing that what we were talking about. She was saying we need the votes. She was explaining to everybody that they needed the votes, and that she was aware of people that were really getting discouraged because of them keep kicking the can down the road over the progress on reparations, and they keep moving the goalposts. You know, coming up with excuses, kind of like that non-answer that President Biden had in that video. Because he never really answered that man's question.
it's her bill.
Right.
So how
So she was explaining the bill, and she was saying how important it was for them to pick up 2 more seats or something like that so they could get it, because with the way the Congress that they have now, they're not able to push it through or something because they need 2 more seats. So she was trying to keep everybody encouraged to keep voting, the vote in midterms, and trying to stress how important it was.
okay.
Politicking.
Okay, so let's peel back the layers on that for just a minute.
Mm-hmm.
There are 220 Democrats in the House, I think, and 212 Republicans. So right now, there are 217 co-sponsors of HR 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's unheard of. Bills get passed with a heck of a lot less numbers of co-sponsors.
Right.
How dare that she would say we need at least 2 more.
Yep. That's what she
That
was saying.
I don't care what she's saying. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
When we have 217 of 220 Democrats already signed on board as co-sponsor supporters of HR 40. And we don't need 2 more. We have 2 more. As a matter of fact, we have 3 more. We have House leadership: Nancy Pelosi, James Clyburn, and Steny Hoyer. So if she needs 2 more, then her job as the bill sponsor is to go and if she does not have the relationship with them, then to form a relationship with them so that they actually Pelosi is the one who's not a co-sponsor. Her name does not appear on the bill. James Clyburn and Steny Hoyer both appear on the bill. So Nancy Pelosi determines the calendar. If she puts it on the calendar, then that means she supports it. So that's one of these two fictitious people that Sheila is talking about. So I don't understand what the problem is. Of course, those of us who have worked our butts off to get it to this point are discouraged, because what we are seeing is that on December 31st, those 217 co-sponsors go away.
Right.
On January 1, the clock resets and you have 0 co-sponsors. So you just squandered 217 co-sponsors. You just let 217 co-sponsors just wash down the drain. You just let 217 co-sponsors just evaporate in the air. And then you're going, and Sheila does not go get co-sponsors. These are grassroots people out here working their butts off to get co-sponsors. So she's going to go sit in her office and wait for the grassroots supporters to go out and get these co-sponsors all over again. And come December 2024, it'll be the same situation. December 2020, it was the same situation. We closed the year, we had 173 co-sponsors. I'm sorry, you just don't have enough. If you had just brought us at least 27 more co-sponsors, we could have done something.
And that's what irks me, the gaslighting, because that's gaslighting, and they're kicking the can down the road. I really do not appreciate somebody just gaslighting me like that.
So we took on the challenge. Now we have 217 co-sponsors and nothing. And they've already established that on January 17th, there will be an HR 40 briefing to talk about HR 40 to elected officials in the House. They already know about HR 40. They know what it does. They know what it doesn't do. But we're going to have a briefing. And then in February, we're going to have a hearing. And then in April, we're going to go back to committee again and work to get it out of committee. Well, that's where it's going to stop. And here's the other piece of it. This is where the rope-a-dope comes in. If by April, it has not gone to the floor for debates, we're on a very, very tight timeline, because the commission is an 18-month commission. So you have 24 months, all of 2023, all of 2024, to stand this commission up, make sure this commission does everything it is supposed to do, be done with the commission, have sent the final report to the president, and the president has signed off on it. Because if not, whoever goes into the White House in 2025 may not even care one hill of a beans about reparations, or they may be totally against reparations. So let's just say, as an example, Senator Warnock decides to run for president and he wins. And he's the president in 2025. And please don't run out anybody and say I said that's going to be the case. We're just hypothetically speaking here. So let's say that he hypothetically runs for president, he hypothetically wins, and he hypothetically is sworn in. But Senator Warnock does not believe in reparations. And let's say his support, his campaign support, didn't come from us. One, we don't normally write big checks for candidates. Two, Barack Obama did campaign financing an injustice because he has people believing that he won off of their little jive $5 that they put in an envelope and sent to him. Whole lot of black people walking around talking about, I donated to Barack Obama. How much you donate? $5. When his re-election campaign was $7 billion. That $5 did, I mean, I'm not saying don't send the $5. Send the $5. But know that $5 is not what gets elected officials in office.
Mhm.
You know, and I'm not saying it in arrogant way. I'm
Right.
not
You're right.
saying it.
You're right.
I'm simply saying $5 doesn't do it. So the people who write the big checks call the shots. And if those people who write the big checks, i.e., for Senator Warnock to become president, they call the shots. So he comes in the White House and he has the authority to overturn that commission's work. Or he could have the authority to say, hey, it's great. Let me issue an additional executive order to say keep moving forward, because Biden is gone, and the executive order that he issued, it has no real standing with anybody else coming in office. So let's just get real crazy and say, some crazy man from the Republican side goes into the White House. What do you think is going to happen with that executive order?
They're
So
going to
my
throw it
point,
out.
absolutely. So my point is, the commission has to be stood up by April of next year so that they have the 18 months. Because remember, April is like giving us, we already will have done 4 of those 24 months. So if it's stood up by the end of April, we have 18 months to actually do everything that we need to do, get the final report to the president for his signature. Well, if we successfully legislate on both sides, because now we still have to effectively move through the Senate. We can't just look at the House side and say, okay, we did it on the House side, because again, on the Senate side, we haven't moved one senator in a year and a half. The ones that signed on by June of last year are it. No other senators have signed on. Great state of Georgia, 2 senators, neither one of them are co-sponsors for Senate. Great state of New Hampshire, one of them are and they're both Democrats, have signed on the companion bill. In Senator Booker's state of New Jersey, his peer, Senator Menendez, has never, ever signed on as a supporter of the Senate companion bill. So we have these states where neither one of 2 senators are even supporters of the companion bill, or we have these states where one is but the other isn't. Therefore, with 50 Democratic senators, only 22 and the bill sponsor are listed on that bill. 27 of them aren't even listed. That's a lot of work to get done in the first 4 months of next year. And you see where we've been. We didn't just start advocating for an executive order yesterday. We've been at it since the beginning of the year, and here we are in October. We were
Right,
at
right.
it last year, and here we are in October. So we don't have enough time to go and to advocate for there to be an executive order. And if we are advocating, the person that we would have to work with to get this executive order, she has sent a message. She's not moving on an executive order. She's not working on it. She's not approved it, and she's not working on it. So we have to turn her around also. It's not just, trying to flip Biden, but we have to
Right.
flip Susan Rice also, because Susan Rice has clearly indicated that, yeah, no, I'm not inclined to work on an executive order for reparations. And that's the sister, in case anybody out
Right,
there is
right.
wondering.
Oh, I'm not shocked. I'm not shocked. I mean,
And she was in Barack Obama's administration, so it's not like she's new to uh, presidential administration and administrative duties. She was in
mhm.
Barack Obama's administration, and she does not. She's made it very clear. She does not support reparations in HR 40. You want it legislated, and they know we can't legislate it. Even with 217 co-sponsors on the House side, there's no way we're going to get at least 23 senators to sign on. The other part of that is no disrespect to anybody. Thank you for your service, Senator Booker. But Senator Booker does not have the time to go out and to do nothing but lobby for his 27 peers to come on board as co-sponsors. So we have some problems there. And there's another piece to this. There are 46 million Black people in this country. 46 million Black people are not in favor of reparations. And it will be difficult to get 46 million Black people, people of African descent, to just say, look, whether you approve of reparations or not, you must agree that this country needs to go through a process of radical racial reckoning.
Mhm.
This country must do that. And the best way to do that is through the commission. Because with the commission, you now have an opportunity to go out and to have town hall meetings and to have people come and express how they feel and talk about the harm and the injuries that their families, their ancestors have all endured, and give this country an opportunity to hear those stories and to have to deal with the fact that it's not my problem, and it certainly isn't my problem alone, that this country was built upon the triplets of racism. Be it that you agree or not, it still was built on the triplets of racism: institutional, structural, and systemic. Some people
Mhm.
say institutional, structural, and individual racism.
Mhm.
Whichever it may be, this country was still built on racism, and this racism was the motivator for capitalism. So you had a solution. The solution was the enslavement of our ancestors, who worked from I can't see sun up to I can't see sunset, and 256 years of forced free labor without even a penny. And when
That's
they were
what
emancipated,
I wanted to ask you about that, about the town halls and who um organizes those town halls for the commission town halls you're talking about? Who organizes that, and how do they tour the United States?
They have a budget. They can go anywhere they want. So they have budgets, and they cannot do it all by themselves. They will have to form alliances with consultants, experts, uh, economists, educators, healthcare experts. All of those people are going to have to come to the table with the commission. But the people have an opportunity to say, wherever they are going to show up for a town hall meeting, it's no different from AB 3121, where the people show up and say all manner, whatever they say. But the people have an opportunity to show up and to have their say.
Mm-hmm.
What would be great would be if, instead of some of the comments that have been made at AB 3121, if that opportunity presented itself, it would be great if folk came and they told the stories that would be stories that could be taken back, and the commission has to sit down and they have to work through those stories, because those stories of injuries and harm are what will be the final decision maker on what the remedies, of redress will be. How are we going to repair this harm? So, because it's at the national level, not at the state level, then those town hall meetings for sure will have to be in at least those areas with a heavy concentration of people of African descent, for sure. I can't imagine they wouldn't have town halls in New York, Philadelphia, Chicago, uh, uh, Los Angeles, Oakland,
Right.
Compton.
Well, here, what California is already working on it. Their leaders want to compensate descendants of slavery. They're already ahead of everybody. So basically, they're going to be like everybody's going to watch and see how that goes with California and their redress for. Let me see. I'm gonna pull this up here. Their
Yeah,
redress for.
that is true. But that's like one of 50 states. So
Mhm.
what you would be having for HR 40 would be, it would have to be across a
Federal.
larger sampling of the population.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, they're not the was it Indiana? Indiana was doing something similar to reparation a couple of years ago too. What weren't they? Indiana. It was Indiana, I believe.
I'm not familiar with Indiana, but there are several states that are working on reparations at the state level. Providence, Rhode Island, Asheville, North Carolina. You already know Evanston, Illinois, New York, Pennsylvania, just as a sampling. So there are several states that are working on reparations at the local level. Amherst, Massachusetts.
And unfortunately, I'm in like Marsha Blackburn and Bill Lee territory down here in the red.
Well, here's how I feel about that. I have an amazing group of old people, elderly people, who live in St. Mary's Parish in Louisiana, in a state where, of all of the congressional representatives, only one of them is a Democrat who happens to be a male, black male. The other 8, the other 8 congressional reps are white Republican men. I'm going to leave it like that. Both senators are white Republican men. And when I first started talking to them, they were like, I ain't talking to them. So now they know their congressional person in the 3rd congressional district. They know his phone number, and they have no problem. They're not shy. They call him and they talk to his staff. So even if it's, Republican white males, sometimes you got to bite that bullet and test the waters and see what happens, because otherwise, excuse me, what you're saying is it's taxation without representation. So you willingly pay your taxes and you willingly accept that you will not have the benefit of representation. And if you disapprove of that, then you gotta call those people, and you have to insist that you need to be heard. Now, are they going to act upon what you're asking that they act upon? Who knows? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But until you test the waters, you don't know. And these are elderly people who are not necessarily the best educated. But once you get them trained, and they do they are some amazing people. They call the White House, they know 202 454 11 no 456 202 456 1111, and they get a bunch of people together and they go to somebody's house and they call and they tell whoever answers the phone, the hotline, what they want the president to know. And if the person on the other end says something they don't like, they do like this hang up thing. Click up. And I'm like, what are you all doing? We just hung up on them. They didn't say what we wanted to hear.
And then they call back. They call back right after that.
No, because whatever the person in the White House said didn't agree with what they wanted to hear. So they just do the animated click up, hang up, and they'll get back together and say, oh, we'll call them back next Monday. Because when I talked to them today, they said, we call the White House on Tuesday. So again, until more of those 46 million people of African descent do things, it doesn't have to be that, but you have to do something to raise the level of consciousness for yourself, and then raising the level of consciousness for yourself. You then sound the alarm to the White House that ain't nobody voting for you, Joe.
Right.
Because he was at the CBC the other night, black tie event. Joe shows up and he tells them how he arranged for the CBC to get $5.8 billion. And he says, and yes, that's with a B, billion with a B. Trying to be, I guess, sort of, bust a joke kind of thing. But he didn't say anything about the fact that this country gave whatever is going on in Ukraine $80 billion.
That part.
And none of the members of the black tie event, the CBC members and their plus ones, nobody stood up and called him out and said, who cares? $5.8 billion is nothing when you have already peeled off $80 billion for Ukraine. And I'm not saying that these people aren't in a humanitarian crisis. We've been in a humanitarian crisis for over 400 years.
Right. Right, that part.
So again, we can get reparations, but we're gonna have to get the people, and the people are gonna have to go to the streets, and they just gonna have to say, we're not leaving. We're in the streets, and you can't make us move. And until you say no, 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 not reparations, and the only way you're gonna get it is you have to bring the American Indian. I think that's what he said. Native
Yeah,
Americans in.
Native Americans.
Um, it's not my job. I mean, again, I'm not taking anything from the Native Americans. I know the history. It started in the state of Virginia. I know that history. But what I'm saying is, it's not my job to go out there with a big old sandwich board saying, calling all Native Americans, we need you in order to aggressively pursue reparations. That's not my job. So then we come to an impasse because Biden is going to say, well, what did I tell you? It has to include Native Americans. Okay, but whose job is it to bring the Native Americans to the table? Are you telling me, the victim, that it's my job? You want
Right,
them there. You want them there. Then you have to do some work, Mr. President. You have to do some work. You have the staff. You have to do some work. We're not saying that, it's not for me to say we're not going to sit down with them, but I am saying you keep sticking them in there saying, well, if it includes the Native Americans, but you have not given a plan of action on how that should happen.
right,
And as a matter of fact, he hasn't said jack squat about it since he got in the White House.
right. Exactly, because I think that video was like during this campaign. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was during the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
that was
I don't know.
very a fruitful conversation, and our call to action is to call the White House. Let me pull up here. I'm gonna pull up the number here.
That's
For
right.
all our allies, call the White House. Here,
We should
HR 40 bill.
never let not 1 week go past when we don't call the White House. And I'm not saying call the White House and ask them to support HR 40 executive order for reparations. I'm saying, be it that or something else. You should always be calling the White House. Those people who answer the phones, they ought not to ever get a break. They should be raising their hand, asking their supervisor if they can sneak off and go to the bathroom, because phones just be lit up all the time.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be, it could be, for example, this is a great example. When the Haitians crossed the border a few months ago, and on nationwide TV, we all looked at the Border Patrol agents on horseback with whips beating the Haitian immigrants back. No one should have watched that and did not do something. Even if it was just to call 202-456-1111 and ask them or tell them to tell the president, this is not how we expect to see this country treat our brethren, our Haitian brethren. We expect better from this country. We expect respect. We expect humanity. We expect dignity. And we definitely don't expect to have to relive our past where somebody on horseback was riding up and down on the plantation with a whip.
I had nightmares seeing that. I had
So,
nightmares because I was like, when back in 2016, like I said, what I was watching early on, what I was witnessing, I said, these people are going to try to revert us back to shadow slavery. And look what we're fighting right now. They're literally trying to do that.
yep,
The
yep,
Republicans.
yep. And we should never ever say, it's never going to happen again. We don't
Right.
have a guarantee of non-repetition.
Nope.
And that's part of what should happen with the commission and reparations. We should be, when we meet with the commission, we should be demanding a guarantee of non-repetition. Otherwise, you don't know. Maybe not my generation, maybe not next generation below me, but at some point, somebody gonna wake up and they're gonna be in chattel slavery again. Somebody gonna
Right.
wake up and they're gonna be back on the plantation again. Somebody gonna be waking up. But we already dealing with leased labor, and that's covered by the 13th Amendment.
Right.
So let's don't say it can never ever happen again. It can happen again.
And Mitch McConnell even said that. Remember when he's like, he was giving at one of his donor parties and saying that he didn't consider Black Americans American. That was this year. That was it this year.
Well, you have Lindsey Graham talking about if Donald Trump doesn't get what he wants, there's going to be rioting in the streets. And all Black people have to do is peacefully show up for a peaceful protest. And the National Guard is out there, the dogs are out there, you name it. And here, this man who is a senior senator, and he's talking about if Donald Trump doesn't get what he wants, there's going to be riots in the streets.
Yeah, and there's no consequences. Still going to work every day. I mean, some of them even attacked the Capitol, and they're still roaming the halls, can't check, clocking in and out, collecting their checks.
Those ones who attacked the Capitol, half of them are ending up in elected official positions. Tell me how that works.
Right.
And Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, his wife Jenny is the person who went and got all the permits and made sure all the permits were in order so that this could happen.
And she bust them in.
Excuse me?
She bust them in.
Yes.
Like on the bus, on the tour bus.
Yep. So she should be in jail also.
And he's still on the bench.
Yep. And he should be asked to step down.
He's on the bench and he's getting ready to take away more rights. That's why I believe that there'll be an attempt to take us back to chattel enslavement.
Wouldn't be surprised.
They got their token. That's emboldening them. Like what I had a conversation with somebody about Kanye. It's like he and Kenniss with their rhetoric, their anti-Black rhetoric, it's dangerous to the Black community because it emboldens these envelopians that are hateful and racist into being more hateful and more dangerous because they're like, well, look at that one over there. They agree with what my ideology is. So, you know what I'm saying? So I'm just going to be extra racist now.
Well, hey, I don't think I'm in a position to monitor what other people say. I don't think I'm in a position to monitor or to censure what other people think. So when it comes to that kind of rhetoric, I think each person has to, for themselves, decide whether or not there's validity in what's being said. And I don't see that as being the deciding factor for who gets in the White House and who doesn't. Now, Donald Trump himself said that after Kanye went to the White House and had his MAGA cap on, that he gained 4 40% more support from people of African descent. Now, who those people were who then came out because of Kanye West and said, I support Donald Trump? I don't know who they were. And Donald Trump, him and his fake news, it's difficult to believe 40%. That's a really high number, high percentage. But again, if wearing a shirt that says White Lives Matter is going to decide an election, we as a country are in trouble. We're just in trouble. And I don't think that him wearing the shirt is going to make a hill of a bean's worth of difference. When you have people who are saying, Herschel Walker as an example, you have Republicans in Georgia who are not admitting that Herschel Walker should not be walking up and down the halls of the Senate building and being addressed as Senator Walker. They know he shouldn't be. So what they are saying is, I'm standing with the party ticket.
Right. They want the seat because if he gets to the seat, they could tell him what to do.
But they also are standing with the party. Do or die, ride or die, Republican. It's like the woman, I forget her name, who said, I don't care who it is. I just want a Republican in that seat.
Yeah, that was that gun nut lady. Yeah.
Whatever her name is. I refuse to think about what her name is.
Yeah, I know she's a gun nut.
So the issue is that ride or die, they just want Republicans in those seats.
Right.
And rather than tell me I have to vote, because if I don't vote, I'm going to be the reason why the Dems lost to the Republicans. But I vote and y'all don't give me anything.
Right.
So I didn't ask for Juneteenth as a holiday.
Right. Because they were already celebrated. We were already celebrating.
A lot of people were. Now that holiday costs taxpayers $825 million every year. I didn't ask for it. What I'm asking for, you don't want to give me. A $20 million commission, but you're willing to give me $825 million holiday. Tell me how that works. You won't give me a $20 million commission, but you will give me an $825 million holiday. Go figure that one out. That's your call to action. Figure that out. How do you not give me a $20 million commission, but you give me $825 million holiday, federal holiday? That I didn't ask for.
And also, besides the fact that people were already celebrating it with this now legislated holiday, to me personally, I see it benefiting corporations more because now they have merchandise that people go to the stores and buy the merchandise. Where does that money go? Back into their pockets. That money that they get back in their pockets, they get to buy politicians that put out fascist legislation, like taking women's bodily autonomy away. You see what I'm saying? So it's like a circle jerk.
Yep.
Okay.
Anytime they come out with Juneteenth ice cream.
Yeah.
It is a commercial. They've turned it into a commercial money-making capitalist venture.
Walmart now, during Juneteenth, now they got like a whole aisle that has Juneteenth t-shirts, Juneteenth plates, Juneteenth napkins, cups, all that stuff now. Like I said, so who is it really benefiting? Because like I said, the Black community was already celebrate Juneteenth without
Mhm.
all that. But now that it's
70
a national holiday, the white corporations are benefiting. You know, you see what it's like? Yeah, that's infuriating to me.
70%,
Okay.
70% of all federal employees are Caucasian. So
Right.
70% of $825 million does not go to people of African descent.
Nope.
17% of
And then when they're off work, right? They're off work on Juneteenth, but yet they're spending what little bit of their money at Walmart getting Juneteenth merchandise, giving it back to these corporations. It's like,
and it's only 17% of the federal workforce are people of African descent. So 17% times 825 million, that's a drop in the bucket. And as you said, they take that their earnings, and then they race off to Walmart and buy a Juneteenth hat, cap, shirt, dress, scarf, bracelet, Juneteenth ice cream. I can't even imagine Juneteenth ice cream. I don't even know what it looks like, and definitely don't know what it could possibly taste like.
It's just infuriating. And on that note, we will close out, and then we're gonna do another show. Anybody that is listening, if you have any questions, I will upload a segment of this podcast on the podcast website, Anchor, and you can leave a voicemail question there. Follow socials, leave a question for Miss Henry if you like, and leave a comment in the. I left the chat open for YouTube, and donations are also greatly appreciated. Thank you, Miss Kenniss.
Thank you. Good night.